Hey, it's Avaris, back again, and today we are playing Chapter 4 of Under the Thorns by EVERIUM. Reading, playing, reading, same difference. Edward turned his attention, drawn to my figure standing before the canvas. The artwork was a vibrant tapestry of light and color.
どう?
Well, Clara, what do you think? My word, it's as if Lady Isabella brought the very ocean itself into this room. I allowed my eyes to leisurely explore its surface, absorbing the intricate details of the ocean scene. The golden sand, painted with remarkable realism, seemed to warm my feet beneath their imaginary touch, while the sunlight danced on the rippling waves, creating an illusion of movement and depth. She certainly has a gift for painting, doesn't she?
結婚前に名のある巨匠の下で修学されたそうだ。
Indeed, you wouldn't believe it, but she trained under a renowned artist before she married. You mean back when she was a young lady?
うん。お父さんと結婚するまでは。
Yes, that's right, before she married my father. Edward joined me, his eyes rising to meet the captivating artwork. I assume they're talking about this in the background here. It's pretty, it's fine. The warmth and affection shining within them spoke volumes of his love for the piece, a love that resonated deeply within my own soul.
母は故郷が恋しくなるたびに海を見るためにこの絵を描いたそうだ。
I was told that she worked on this painting whenever she felt homesick for the sea. Don't tell me, he's not Fae, he's like Selkie or something? I don't know, we'll see.
いい感じでしょ?
A rather remarkable view, wouldn't you say? Oh, I wouldn't disagree. It's truly breathtaking. Even I, who had previously never considered such a thing, found myself yearning to visit the idyllic scene captured on the canvas. In my mind's eye, I saw Edward seated before it, gazing out at the vast expanse of the ocean, his thoughts lost in contemplation. Unbidden, yet with unwavering conviction, the words tumbled from my lips. I'm certain you'll get to see the real sea someday.
そんなことができるだろうか?
Do you honestly think so? Of course, though it might take a little time and effort. Once Robert's illness was under control, Edward would be able to leave the manor and pursue his deepest aspirations. Honestly, I don't see why he can't do that now, other than I guess his dad's sick, so it would be like bad form to leave. They keep implying that there's something else, though, so we'll see.
そうだろうね.
I suppose you're right. Never mind, he's not disagreeing. I don't know what's up. Edward's response was a silent affirmation, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. As I pushed open the heavy door to the servants' hall, my hand instinctively reached for my rumbling stomach. A wave of curious faces turned towards me, their expressions a mixture of anticipation and amusement. It was as though they had been eagerly awaiting my arrival, their eyes filled with unspoken questions. The sudden focus was disconcerting, and I found myself blinking rapidly, a flush of embarrassment creeping across my face. Why are you all looking at me like curious cats? Alice hurried over to hold my hand, concern etched upon her features. I heard you volunteered to clean Lord Edward's chamber. My thoughts drifted to whose earlier expression had been a puzzling mix of delight and apprehension. Now her silence made perfect sense. She must have divulged the news of my plans to the others. Indeed I did. Those toilets were giving me no end of trouble, and I thought a change of scenery would be pleasant. I understand the difficulty, but are you certain you're comfortable taking on such a task? Why wouldn't I be? Well, there are thousands of reasons. I assume this is the bias against Edward in the household. Despite my assurances that all was well, Alice's agitation only intensified. As I stood by, passively observing, a growing throng of onlookers gathered, their eyes filled with suspicion and speculation about me and Edward. Come to think of it, you have been spending rather a lot of time with his lordship lately. And wouldn't you know it, there are whispers that you and his lordship are developing quite the bond. Now, that is simply not true. We have merely struck up a friendly acquaintance, nothing more. But for someone so unconcerned, your ears seem to be a rather fetching shade of red. And your nose shares the same color. As the seconds ticked by, their relentless chatter grew progressively louder, culminating in a particularly harsh comment. Feeling overwhelmed by the cacophony, I instinctively raised my hands to cover my ears and nose, seeking a moment of respite from the incessant barrage of words. A wave of laughter erupted around me, echoing within the confines of the hall. Witnessing my distress, Thomas shook his head, his expression conveying a sense of helplessness. Clara, whatever feelings you may have for Lord Edward, I strongly advise you to reconsider. I assure you I have no such feelings. I simply don't believe he is a terrible person, as some would have us believe. Those instructions to keep your distance were not issued without good reason. Yes, the handbook. Having personally experienced the repercussions of unchecked gossip and misplaced judgment, I now had much to say on the matter. The events to this day had provided me with a wealth of knowledge that I was determined to share. Has it ever occurred to anyone that perhaps those instructions might be misleading? An oppressive silence descended upon the hall as I finished speaking. Oh, I don't think anyone questions the head housekeeper, Olivia, in this situation. That seems not smart. Every face turned towards me, etched with disapproval and contempt. I told you! Alice, who had been observing with arms crossed, finally broke the stillness with a cutting retort delivered in a frigid tone. Just because you arrived later than us does not mean you are privy to all the details, Clara. Will someone please explain things, because I feel like we just don't have context? Then enlighten me. What is it I do not know? I concur. Our eyes met for a brief moment before Alice hastily averted her gaze, quickly followed by Thomas and Bruce. So they know stuff, but they're not telling, or no one actually knows anything, they're just like, they go with the flow. Who knows? We shall see. Never mind, I have work to do. Nevertheless, Clara, give it some serious thought. Feeling the absurdity of the situation knotting in my gut, I offered a shrug of nonchalance. I turned my back on them and refused to grant their animosity even a flicker of my attention. Though their disapproval etched in the form of audible tuts, I remained resolutely unfazed. I was gathering my cleaning supplies and heading outside when I spotted Edward seated at a distance. It had been less than half an hour since we had left for lunch. Surprised by his unexpected presence, I hurried over. Lord Edward! Edward's shoulders stiffened, and he hurriedly wiped his mouth. Oh, are you a vampire and you're drinking blood or something? Okay, bad joke.
早かったね。
You're ahead of schedule today, Clara. What brings you here without taking your lunch first?
ただ、もどかしくて。
I just found myself feeling rather confined within. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a small packet resting beside him. Not a blood packet, though, I assume. It appeared meager for a meal, and concern gnawed at me. The staff isn't feeding him? I mean, no wonder he's a little waif. Probably anemic. Victorians are always anemic. Anyway. I opened my mouth to speak, but before I could utter a word, something was thrust into my mouth. Ugh. I instinctively took a bite, and the biscuit crumbled against my tongue, releasing a symphony of flavors. Well, thank goodness it's just a biscuit. The exquisite butter and bittersweet chocolate melded together, creating a taste sensation unlike any I had ever experienced. Oh, he was like secretly enjoying candy. Okay, that was nice. Good for you. It was heavenly.
君のことを思い出して持ってきたよ。
I brought these for you. He watched me intently for a moment, then shoved the entire pouch into my hand with a conspiratorial grin. It was clear He was bribing me with a delicious treat to ensure my cooperation. They are delicious.
多めに持ってきたから、たくさん食べて。
I brought quite a lot, so please, don't be shy. I joined him on the steps, and we settled into a companionable silence as I arranged the remaining treats. The gentle breeze carried the scent of the snack, making it taste even more divine. Halfway through, we craved a cup of tea to settle the stomach. As Edward took a sip, he inquired about my schedule for the remainder of the day. With an eye roll, I pondered the tasks ahead and then concisely listed them. After I finished cleaning the mausoleum, not much really, other than, oh, it's also the day I visit the apothecary. Olivia provided me with the details earlier. She instructed me to report to the main gate after completing my duties, where the coachman would await to escort me into town.
君、一人で行くの?
You'll be going alone. As you may already know, this visit is supposed to be discreet. Edward seemed hesitant about sending me off alone. However, with only a handful aware of Lord Robert's precarious state, reversing the decision wasn't an option. Upon hearing my explanation, Edward turned towards the front door, his expression grave.
クララ、僕が見送ってもいいかな?
Clara, would you mind if I accompanied you to the gate? What? Now? He offered a brisk nod without adding an explanation. Still unsure of the situation, I leaned close to his ear and whispered my question. Is something troubling you?
いや、ただ、もう正門くらいは大丈夫だと思って。
No, not necessarily. I simply believe a walk to the gate should be manageable now. Yeah, I'm just as confused as she is. Despite my worried expression, he only offered a cryptic smile. While I didn't believe he would face any repercussions for accompanying me to the gate, I felt uneasy for reasons I could not explain. Pretty. With Edward's assistance, I completed the cleaning tasks with ease, returned the tools, and exited the building. Edward, who had been waiting for me, repeated his earlier question.
本当に一人で行っても大丈夫?
Are you certain you'll be all right making the journey alone? I stopped abruptly and met his gaze directly. If you're concerned, you're more than welcome to join me.
僕もそうしたいんだけど。
I would be delighted to. But... His eyes darted away, confirming my suspicions. There it was again, the hidden truth. I turned away, intentionally feigning annoyance. It's not as if I'm going there because I particularly want to be there in the first place.
ごめんね。クララ、怒ってるの?
I apologize, Clara. Are you upset with me? No, of course not. I am not upset. In fact, quite the opposite. I feel perfectly content. We set off towards the gate, bickering playfully. The carriage stood opposite the gate, but the coachman was nowhere to be seen. It appeared he had left for a brief errand. I unlatched the door and slid in. The condition of this place has changed quite dramatically. The interior was spotless and odor-free, a stark contrast to its previous state. It was clean enough for even Edward to find it acceptable. Are you absolutely certain you wouldn't prefer to remain outside?
乗ってみるよ。
I shall try. As I was about to step out, Edward's hand shot out, stopping me in my tracks. A disquieting sense of unease washed over me as I recognized the unsettling shift in his demeanor. You're quite all right, aren't you? He cautiously lowered his foot from the curbstone, his movement suggesting a response to my unanswered question. I held my breath, watching him approach with a mixture of curiosity and nervousness. An unseen hand seemed to grip my heart, squeezing it with an icy fear, its origin a shrouded mystery. His initial move was one of cautious exploration, but he quickly transitioned to a confident stride, as if he had overcome his hesitation. Dude, he is like fey or cursed or bound or something. Something's going on here. With each step he took, a strange joy began to bloom on his face, only to be extinguished just as quickly. Edward abruptly halted and frowned, as if sensing something amiss. A crimson stream trickled from his parted lips, staining his collar. Edward! The gasp! He tries to leave and he starts bleeding. Wow, that sucks. Panic surged through me as I leaped down from the carriage and cradled his collapsing body. Edward looked up, his face pale and drawn. A pained groan escaped his lips. Why, what is happening to you? My vision tunneled, filled only with him and the horror of the situation. Edward, coughing blood, spoke in a voice filled with despair.
やはり無理みたいだ。
Once again. What? Why?
ごめんね。君には心配ばかりかけているね。
I'm sorry. My presence seems to bring you nothing but trouble. He closed his eyes, accepting the inevitable reality he had recognized.
やっぱり、一生。
After all, in eternity. Pale as death, Edward appeared to be on the brink of succumbing. My body quaked with fear and regret. Had I known what would transpire, I would never have urged him on. Please, please, somebody help! Help Lord Edward, please! A scream tore from my throat as I called for help, pulling Edward into my arms. It was the only thing I could do. As consciousness flickered back, I found Olivia's stern visage looming above me. Her gaze, devoid of warmth, drained the blood from my skin. What transpired, Clara? I haven't the faintest notion. Suddenly, as we exited the gate, Lord Edward... Clara, compose yourself. There was blood, ma'am, on his lordship's lips. Clara! I stirred, muttering incoherently, and met her unwavering stare. Her silence was answer enough, and I waited, breath hitched, for her next words. I shall handle his affairs, Clara. You tend to your own. Mine. Memories, elusive and fragmented, swirled within my head. A frantic search for clarity yielded naught but a gnawing worry for Edward. You refer to the trip into town? Precisely. Is there an issue with that? No, ma'am. Olivia's disapproval, evident in the sharp click of her tongue, spurred me into action. Clara, let me give you a piece of advice. Focus on your own tasks, and leave the business of others to them. Without a word, I stepped outside the room, the weight of the situation pressing down upon me. Leaning against the cool stone wall, I glanced at my maid's uniform, its pristine white now marred by a crimson stain. It served as a stark reminder of the events that had transpired. And then she went into town. Pretty background. The bustling town square, a stark contrast to the manor's quietude, buzzed with activity. Excitement had been coursing through my veins at the prospect of this errand, until this afternoon. Yet a shadow of concern lingered, casting a pall over the vibrant scene. Edward's well-being weighed heavily on my mind, painting the world in shades of worry. With a heavy sigh, I looked out vacantly through the quarter light, the sympathetic gaze of the coachman reflecting my internal turmoil. I'm sure he'll be all right. Very well. Well, since you're here in town, why not try to lift your spirits a bit? Though the urge to dismiss his concern was strong, decorum held me back. A curt nod and a strained smile were all I could manage. With a leaden heart, I grasped the carriage door and stepped out onto the bustling cobblestones. My gaze, unseeing and heavy, scanned the rows of shops, searching for the address hidden amongst their colorful facades. My destination, nestled among the numerous shops lining the boulevard, awaited. The vast expanse of the countryside, coupled with the scarcity of medical professionals, meant relying on the family's doctor's wisdom for any ailment. I watched the apothecary carefully as he read Olivia's letter, his brow furrowing in concentration. He then began to measure and mix various ingredients, his movements precise and practiced. As I waited, anticipation building with each passing moment, something unexpected appeared before me. Before I could grasp the situation, the medicine stood complete. The silence stretched thick as the apothecary's hushed words hung in the air, his smile a riddle waiting to be solved. A little warning next time, eh? Makes things smoother. Certainly. So this was an unexpected visit? Not for regular medicine for the father, perhaps? Perhaps Olivia is into something quite nefarious, after all? Time will tell. The whispered word piqued my curiosity, but I responded nonetheless. A satisfied smile played on the apothecary's lips as he whistled a merry tune, reclaiming his seat. I stuffed the medicines and instructions into my bag with a hurried movement and stole a quick glance at him before I exited the shop. Curiosity kills, Clara, they warned. Yet here I am, again. The moment I stepped out of the apothecary's shop, I pulled the paper from the bag and eagerly scanned the contents. My eyes devoured the contents. A concise recipe, precise dosages, a list of precautions, and a detailed list of forbidden ingredients. Just one element stood out, the repeated assertion that the apothecary has fulfilled Olivia's every request. Yeah, there's something sus about this. I see nothing peculiar. Really? 'Cause I do! I approached the carriage, parked in the alleyway behind the shop, my hand reaching for the door handle. A burning desire to return home and tend to Edward consumed me. I'm back. So soon? There is nothing out of the ordinary. Well, I've got something rather special for us. And what might that be? The coachman, scratching his head, pointed towards a nearby gate. A large crowd had gathered there, and an overturned carriage lay in the process of being repaired. This unexpected obstacle added to my frustration. Well, as I mentioned before, it's high time we had a change of scenery. Couldn't we simply remain in the carriage and take a well-deserved rest? Out of the question. How else can I enjoy a proper drink then? You want to go... Okay. I see what you're up to, buddy. You have fun with that. Heavens above. Regardless of the throbbing headache that pulsed in my temples, the coachman continued his unfiltered pronouncements. From the coachman's words, it appeared we would be forced to seek refuge in the nearby tavern until the road was cleared. I resigned myself to this temporary delay and watched as the coachman led the horses towards the tavern. The sudden, enforced break allowed for a moment of introspection. Promptly, an idea struck me. Should I get Edward something? Though Edward desired the freedom himself, it was I who had inadvertently caused him the accident. But what would he like? My gaze fell upon vibrant posters on the windows of the apothecary shop, bookstore, or textile store. Well, probably not the apothecary shop, because we were just in there and they would sell, like, you know, drugs and things. I mean, no, he's sick and all, but I'm not sure what all we would be able to potentially bring him. The bookstore, textile store. I mean, books are great. I like books. Everyone should like books. This is a book. This is a visual display book, basically. I cannot decide. You know, he lives in a mansion that's probably, like, full of books. I mean, they probably even have, like, an entire library. So, what is the textile store? A vibrant canopy stretched across the entrance of the textile store, casting dappled shadows upon the rows of vividly colored cotton fabrics hanging beneath. Oh, we gonna get him a scarf or a sweater or something? The air was filled with the gentle rustling of the cloth, each piece whispering tales of distant lands and skilled craftsmanship. This haven, specializing in the creation of quilts and blankets, beckoned me with the promise of warmth and comfort. And he did give us a blanket before, so maybe this is the good thing. Goodness me, just remembered, we ripped the blanket the other night. Oh, then this is perfect! Stepping under the awning, I couldn't resist reaching out, touching one of the fabrics, its softness a soothing caress against my skin. Memories of the tattered blanket found in the mausoleum flickered in my mind, a stark contrast to the vibrant tapestry before me. As my fingers brushed against the fabric, a shadow fell across the display. "My dear lady, fancy you gracing this humble shop with your presence." Looking up, I met the curious gaze of the shopkeeper. His eyes seemed to mistake me for a noblewoman, perhaps swayed by the simple elegance of my dress in contrast to the blood-stained maid's uniform I wore earlier this afternoon. He gently guided me towards the back of the shop, his voice a soothing murmur as he introduced me to a treasure trove of exquisite fabrics. And probably the pricier ones, too. Oh well. Amidst the dazzling array, a particular blanket caught my eye. Woven from threads that shimmered like moonlight on the sea, it was a masterpiece of textile artistry. "You have a discerning eye. This particular blanket is soft enough to be fit for a cradle." "I see. And how much would that one be?" Also, the painting had, like, the ocean in it, so there was a description that was similar to the ocean in that one, so maybe this is still good. As the shopkeeper unfolded it, revealing its intricate pattern and luxurious texture, he proudly announced its price, a sum that caused my breath to catch in my throat. "Goodness gracious me, isn't that a bit steep?" "That's only the cost of the material, mind you, not including the profit margin." The stark contrast between its quality and that of the fabrics readily available outside was undeniable. Just wrap it up, I'll take it." A lump formed in my throat, threatening to spill over into tears. This single purchase would claim half my weekly wages, a sacrifice I knew I must make. Do you, though? Do you? You could shop around. We could visit all 3 places if we really wanted to. Oh well, whatever. "We got him a blanket." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the land, I returned to the manor. The long journey had taken its toll, leaving my body weary and aching. I massaged my throbbing back and then descended from the carriage. Olivia awaited me at the entrance. "I have returned, ma'am." "Did you obtain the prescriptions successfully?" "Indeed I did. It is here." I presented the medications and note to Olivia, her eyes scrutinizing the contents. A flicker of recognition crossed her face, followed by a satisfied smirk. Finally, I could ask the question that had been burning in my mind. With a hesitant intake of breath, I dared to ask, "And how fares his lordship, may I inquire?" Olivia's response, veiled in silence and a knowing smile, offered no answers. Dejected, I retreated to my room, the weight of uncertainty heavy on my heart. Maybe we should have gotten him some meds. I don't know if he's being taken care of around here. Dang. Days turned into weeks. Edward remained a distant figure, glimpsed only temporarily through the doorway by Olivia or the head butler. Anxiety gnawed at me, fueling a series of uncharacteristic blunders. Then, fate intervened in the form of a 3-day leave granted by Olivia. Those days, each one an eternity, were spent in silent vigil outside Edward's door. Though today would mark the final day. Dawn's early light heralded a frantic cleaning session. I envisioned the state of his room after my absence, picturing dust and disarray. Squatting before the door, I sighed, the undelivered gift heavy in my arms. Okay, so even if I gave him medicine... So even if we went to the apothecary shop and got him medicine, we might not have been able to give it to him. Or maybe that would have opened up a different pathway to sneak in and see what's wrong. I don't know. Maybe we made the wrong choice. Part of me yearned to pound on the wood and demand his presence. Why would the door never open? A memory surfaced, Edward's nocturnal visits to the mausoleum. If only I could use magic to unlock it. Open sesame. The gasp. A jolt of terror shot through me, launching me upright in a convulsive motion. As I spun around, the door rasped open, its rusty hinges groaning in protest. The figure framed in the doorway, bathed in the dim light that bled through the crack, abruptly arrested its movement, mirroring my own shock with its sudden stillness. My hands, paralyzed by anxiety, became rooted to the floor as I watched the figure emerge from the shadows, its form coalescing into reality.
Clara.
Clara? It was Edward. Blinking away disbelief, I rushed towards him. Edward, is that truly you?
僕だよ。
Yes, Clara, it is I. Oh, heavens above. My lips quivered, a dam on the verge of collapse against the rising tide of emotion. Then, with a shuddering breath, the dam broke, and sobs erupted from me, cascading down my face like a waterfall unleashed. Edward's movements were swift and sure. As I stumbled, his arms, strong and comforting, shot out, pulling me into the safety of his room. After a long while, the storm subsided, leaving behind a calm peace. I wiped my tear-streaked face, sniffling softly. Edward reached for a handkerchief, his hand pausing awkwardly before retracting.
もう十分泣いた?
Have you finished crying? Yes, please forgive me. I frightened you, didn't I?
いや、泣くとは思わなかった。
No, well, I did not anticipate your tears. But of course I would cry. I was so worried about you. As fresh tears welled up, he gently placed his hand upon my shoulder, a silent reassurance.
大丈夫。ちょっと出かけたからといって死ぬわけではないから。
It is all right, Clara. It's not as if stepping outside for a moment would be my demise. That is not how it looked. So you won't die from doing that? What a change. Yes. No explanations, I assume. Just, you randomly bleed when you try to leave, and there will be no explaining. Okay. I babbled on, overflowing with joy, while Edward looked at me with a hesitant smile. His face, pale and drawn from illness, held a wistful longing. I felt responsible. Remembering the gift, I presented it to him, holding my breath in anticipation. Right, I have something for you.
いきなり?
So suddenly. As he unwrapped it, a pang of disappointment stabbed at me. I made the wrong choice. What seemed like a treasured item in the shop now appeared hopelessly ordinary in Edward's hands. I frowned, desperately searching for words to explain my purchase. I thought I might bring you something from outside, so I purchased this. It wasn't very expensive.
無理して準備しなくていいのに。
You truly didn't need to trouble yourself. Edward, though, remained enthralled by the offering. He cradled it close to his chest, his eyes sparkling with an almost childlike fascination, mirroring the unadulterated joy of a young boy discovering a long-awaited treasure. His fingers traced the contours of the gift with gentle reverence, his touch feather-light as if afraid to disturb its delicate magic. As he held it, his gaze seemed to pierce through the object itself, lost in a world of wonder only he could see. A wave of pride, warm and comforting, swept over me. Witnessing his unfeigned appreciation, his genuine delight in the simple act of receiving, filled my heart with a joy that transcended the object itself.
僕のことを考えてくれた。
For me. A gentle smile softened his lips as he fiddled with a necklace around his neck.
ありがとう。大事にするよ。
Thank you, Clara. I shall treasure it. Ah, well, yes, please do cherish it. Realizing my mind had wandered, I lunged forward, my hand outstretched in a belated attempt to offer a more genuine response. Oh, I mean, don't worry. You can do whatever you wish with it. It's quite inexpensive.
いいや、大切に使うよ。
I wouldn't have it any other way. As you wish. The hours that followed were filled with whispered tales. I recounted the happenings at the town, while Edward shared his experiences during his illness. Though the separation was brief, it felt like an eternity. Regret tugged at me as I rose to leave, aware of the time constraints. Edward followed me to the doorway, his hand gently resting on my arm. His eyes held a melancholic longing.
また会えるよね。
We shall meet again, won't we, Clara? Of course. Is there something concerning on your mind?
何事もなかった。
No, nothing at all. With a hopeful smile, he held up the gift, his words echoing his concealed feelings.
今夜は君のおかげでよく眠れそうだよ。
I believe I shall sleep soundly tonight, thanks to you. His cheerful demeanor lifted the weight of my worries. I returned with a smile, a heartfelt expression of gratitude and renewed hope. And I too. And that's the end of chapter 4. We didn't really get new information, just that there's definitely something really weird going on with the whole he can't leave, and if he tries, he'll start bleeding. And then he recovered like super fast, and we kind of didn't talk about that either, but maybe these are a lot of details being just glossed over because they aren't that important to the story. It's honestly hard to say. There's so much of the little mystery going on here, but we just don't have enough details to work with. Whether it's the staff or the rules, or the shadows haven't shown up in a while either, so I don't know. We'll find out more as things progress. So we'll see how that goes. Thanks for watching, and hopefully it was fun. Let me know again if you have any theories, and until next time, thanks, bye.